A-E-I-O-U. And sometimes, why is the English language so messed up? And Y can be I, and Y can be E, or Y can be Y. That doesn't even make sense, but it makes sense to those who can make sense of it.
You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley, and with me today is my good friend and Make It podcast co-host, Nicholas Bugs. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast, and this is an indie talk week, and that means I'm here with my good friend and co-host and co-founder, Nicholas Bugs. Nick, say hello.
What's up, Chris? I like that little intro, man. I think it was like all up and down. It was like, and then down, back up again. I had the roller coaster effect on another indie talk week with my co-host and founder.
It's almost melodic.
There you end almost. What are you talking about, man? That was quite melodic. I enjoyed it. I was along for the ride.
If you talk like that in a show, no one knows where to stop listening to you at.
Right.
But if you talk like that in real life, then no one invites you to their parties.
Exactly. I've wanted to be able to speak in like announcer voice to, in front of people that I don't know. I thought that would be like super awesome. Like you get introduced to somebody. Okay. Hi, how are you? It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Nicholas Bugs, and yours? Oh, hi, Jennifer. Just like do the whole conversation that way. And just like, but maybe just keep going. Hi, Jennifer. Yes, it is a beautiful day outside. If you're looking out there, it's sunny. It's slightly sunny, slightly cloudy. I think there's a chance of rain. I think the chance of rain might be 30%. Today, tomorrow, the next day, I think we're going to have a wonderful week. What do you think, Jennifer? It doesn't matter what you think. I'm just going to keep on talking.
When you have a great voice, why stop talking? Right.
Exactly.
Don't need your input here.
And that's wonderful. You can say that too. It's like, why would I stop talking? Can you hear me? Do you hear this lusciousness coming out of my mouth? Then why should I give you a turn?
Why? Bless the world with your crackly voice.
Yeah, right.
Me continue on. But yeah, there are ways. I've had this hack before, speaking of like social interactions, or I've talked about this hack before in social interactions. So if you're stuck at a party and you want to be able to, it's hard to leave sometimes.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell everybody you're going. They give you the faux, oh, already? And then it's like, well, wait, we were just about to, and, all that stuff. And so there's a phrase that you can just say as you walk out the door that no one can really discern, but sounds like words. It's like, it's something like Rastafrasakan. So you go to the door, you kind of put your hand up to say bye. You say, Rastafrasakan. And then everybody's like, okay. And it allows you to leave the party.
This is the thing that works. Like you've done this before.
Right. Rastafrasakan. You're just able to get out of there.
So basically what you're doing is you're making it so that they can't respond because they don't know what to respond to. So they just let you leave.
But they're socially embarrassed. They didn't understand. Right.
Because someone else waved their hand and was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And you waved your hand and it was acknowledged that everyone understood it. Why didn't you understand it? So there's nothing you're kind of frozen. And in that moment of frozen, you can walk out the door.
Someone's going to be like, did he just say that he was Rastafarian?
You're Rastafarian.
Is that what
yeah, as you leave. Yeah, that's exactly right. That reminds me of that old Dave Attell joke too, where if anyone leaves early, it's like your responsibility to tell them the craziest things happened right after you left.
There you go. I like it.
As soon as you left, Beyonce showed up.
Right.
As soon as you left, 5 midgets came in a mariachi band. You wouldn't
there you
believe
go.
it.
You're right.
Like as soon as had you just waited, you would have enjoyed it.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, this has been Party Etiquette by Chris and Nick. But speaking of Frozen, by the way, there is a animated movie that I watch as part of my movies to watch list, going into the Academy Awards, which is this upcoming Sunday, and I'm running out of time. Again, I've never had this many movies to watch to prepare for the show, so I can gamble on who's going to win and not going to win, like I like to do every year. I put my money where my viewership is every year. There's a film called Flea, great animated movie. Got that off my list. It sells you hard on how great it's going to be, and it's pretty good. You will remember it because it's animated, and they had to animate it to protect the guy's identity, which is remarkable in 2022, that you just can't be who he is without fear of retribution or some sort of punishment. But that was an absolutely beautiful film. And let me take you back.
Yeah, let me take you back to that real quick. So you said it sets you up for like how great it's going to be, but then you said it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Are you saying that it lived up to how great it set it up to be, or are you saying it's only just pretty good?
I mean, it's only just pretty good. I mean, like It's not especially compared to the group of films that are sort of in its
category,
peer group.
Yeah.
No, not its category, but its peer group. Like in terms of these are Academy qualifying. These are the best movies of the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, Red Rocket, I just saw. Sean Baker's done it again. Unbelievable. Funny, heartbreaking, so good at writing characters that remind you of people you might know or people you've seen or you imagine you might know. Hats off to Sean Baker, who we've mentioned, I think, a few times in the last Indie Talks, coincidentally, but just saw Red Rocket. So good. Finally knocked Licorice Pizza off the list. The title, I think, messes people up. Like, why don't we just name our movie, ketchup hot dog, or like what's going on? Like, I guess that's not a perfect analogy because
no, I mean it's good because but I get what you're saying though, because I'm sure that for some people it might have turned them off to watching it. Because that's the thing. You kind of look at the title, like, is that something I'd be interested in? Where that doesn't really explain. So you really have to know or care something about the writer, producer, director, mm-hmm. Or even the distributor to want to watch it. Of course, if it gets shortlisted for an Academy Award.
So
exactly.
That drives me at least, because he's made some of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
But the problem was I had heard from a few people that I respect on these things that the movies, you're watching these two characters and the movie's just okay. And I'm like, or it's good, but it's like, it's just, I'm like, I start watching it. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. It's not anything like, so there. And to be fair, I had a few more people tell me it was incredible. And I'm with those people that say it's incredible. But the same thing happened with French Dispatch when I watched the Wes Anderson movie. There were people who just aren't a fan of characters that talk that much in his cut style. And, if you don't like that, then the movie's off for you from Jump Street. But I geek out on that stuff. I mean, just the opening shot alone of the maitre d' carrying a tray, and it's one continuous shot of him going up these stairs all the way to the top. I mean, he just had a bunch of it. Watching French Dispatch is like going to film school. Like if you were a cinematographer and a director and maybe even a writer, I would assign French Dispatch and say, hey, just watch the technical on this, watch it for entertainment later, watch the technical on this. So I'm down to just a few days left, and I'm down to just a few movies. Here's what's left. Drive My Car, which is a Japanese film, I believe. It's 3 hours long. You actually have to have this block of time, and I just haven't had a 3 hour. I honestly haven't had a 3 hour block of time.
Well, I mean, even for all the other movies. I mean, think about it. Each of those is a 2 hour block of time, right? Mm-hmm. So if you add them all up, that's a lot of blocks of time. So
it is. I've dedicated a lot of my life to this so far.
Yep, as it turns out, my friend.
Parallel Mothers, right? With Penelope Cruz, that's left. The Worst Person in the World, that's left. I think those are the final three. There was another movie on the list called Hand of God. I can't find it anywhere, so we'll let that ride. But Drive My Car, Parallel Mothers, Worst Person in the World. And then I can actually get back to like enjoying some of these indie films that are on the list that I sort of promised I would watch a long time ago. Films from friends of ours and people we know. So anyway, I don't know what I'll pick right now. Like I've said before, I don't know what I'll pick as best movie of the year, but right now I think it's going to be Power of the Dog or Coda. I liked both of them a lot. But like I've always said, the movie that left me with the best feeling when I left and the performances were great and the writing was great was Come On, Come On. And I think it's just going to be one of the ones that gets forgotten about.
Oh, so you're saying,
unfortunately.
So back to what you said. So what do you think is the best movie? Come On, Come On?
Come On, Come On. Yeah.
Okay. But you're saying you think that Power of the Dog is going to win that or Coda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you remember playing Mario Brothers and you had to pick a character, and it's like if you pick Princess, you pick somebody who could float for long distances. If you pick Luigi, you pick someone who could jump really high. And if you pick Toad, you pick someone who was short to the ground but really quick. But if you picked Mario, you got all the attributes in one person. Someone who's not the highest jumper but jumps pretty high, who can float but can't float like her, who's pretty quick but not quick as Toad. And sometimes for me, it was like, just pick Mario. Because you're not short on anything. You're just not great at any one thing. And you might need all those attributes at different times in the game. Well, that's what Power of the Dog is to me. It's good at everything. It's excellent, I should say, at everything. I mean, the directing, the shots, you know how hard it is to shoot in mountains and deal with light? Like, it's just, they kill it. The set design, the performances, the pace, the pacing, where it just wants you to it just slowly builds you almost to the point of something's going to happen now. It's got to happen, right? And then it happens. So it has the best subtle twist I've seen in a really long time. Very subtle twist. It's not like Usual Suspects where the twist is kind of like hits you like a ton of bricks. But it's so well done. So I think that's why it'll win. And then Coda is the one that, you know, is the one that really gives you the physical emotional response. Like, okay, I cried at this. And then I watched it again and cried again. It's
probably because, well, one, you know, for the story and you know, the events of it that made you cry, but it's also, you know, if you compare it to Power of the Dog, can you see yourself in the Power of the Dog situation versus can you see yourself in Coda, right? Can you see yourself in the realism of Coda? Like,
Coda's a real modern time sort of.
Exactly. So it hits different, right?
It does. And it's different. You haven't seen anything. You haven't been presented with this problem in a lot of films, which is what happens if your entire family is deaf except one person. And the burden that one person has to carry for everything that you do in your life, from ordering food at a restaurant to communicating with other adults to solving quarrels at work and other places. And then you layer on top of it, you've been gifted with the talent of singing really well, and your entire family can't experience it. So they have no idea. They don't know how to value it. but the rest of the world values it quite a bit. So a juxtaposition takes place that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting world. And some of the things that I've seen in that coda space is even the fact that they have to kind of like, there's this weird line between, those who can hear and those who can't. And, a person who can hear, but then also speaks sign language, the folks who speak sign language and can't hear kind of see them as outsiders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like you're not really one of us, even though they live like that almost every day. It's just, it's an interesting thing in that community that isn't often something we're aware of. Like, can you imagine like deaf prejudice?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Within the community, it's an odd thing, right? To consider, I'm a deaf person and I have some level of prejudice against someone who knows sign language, but isn't deaf themselves. It's like, well, you don't really understand my plight.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of thing. So it's definitely a whole world that probably deserves exploration. And it's awesome that Coda is here to start that at least.
Yeah. Apple TV and look, hot take. Apple is here. They want to be a player. They're here to stay. Indie filmmakers, we talk about pitching to Netflix all the time. How about pitching to Apple?
Yeah.
Apple from day one has been a place that has supported the independent creative, whether it be in music or digital art and now in film. Because even if you had an independent film and you rolled it out and got a shitty services deal, iTunes was still your one hope to get fair market value because people had to buy your movie.
They had to pay for it. Yeah.
They had to pay. Yeah, they had to pay to see it, pay to play. And Apple was strong enough and big enough to say, yeah, this is what it costs to buy this particular piece of art. If you want to see it, this is what you pay. And if it's convenient to the viewer, they just end up paying it because no one misses the $6. Because that's the truth of it. The truth of it is people put up this big guff about how much certain pieces of art cost, but you don't miss it. Like you can't take your marbles with you when you die. Like before Napster, albums were getting very expensive, but not against inflation. And there's not one person that has a piece of vinyl or a cassette or a CD that they love. They look back on it now and regret it. They're like, I own this. It feels so good to own it. Like I don't miss $8. I don't miss the $15. I don't miss the $10.99.
Yeah, it still happens today. I think that's what people forget, right? Yes, there's a lot of it is quote unquote free, right? Mm-hmm. But people still do buy vinyl.
Yep, I do.
People still buy DVDs and Blu-rays. Like that's not gone. It still does happen. There's still a market for that. So yeah, there's still value to it. And I'm with you. There's something about also just having the thing, right? Owning it, not just passively, I listen to it, it's gone, or I watch it, it's gone. It's like, no, owning it. Now I have it. I can watch it whenever I want. I can share it with friends. I can do whatever, but there is a benefit to the ownership piece of it.
Yeah. There's always a knife to your neck in today's sort of consuming culture. In my opinion, the company that owns the platform always has a knife to your neck. And it's the day that never happens, but it's like an existential threat all the time. Like, okay, I'll suspend your account. That means you've lost access to everything you've paid for, your entire library. It's a big deal. Like Kanye just got his Instagram account suspended. I don't know what that's like because we just don't get controversial in that way yet.
Right. Yeah.
I guess, or no one cares, right? Which is more likely the case. What we're talking about. But with Kanye, like, what does it mean to have your account suspended? What did he have that was personal to him that he might even own that lives within that particular account? And can you get access to those artifacts, even if your account's suspended? I don't know. If Apple says, we're canceling your account, do they give you a download of everything you've purchased? Probably not. Like, so I think there's still value in owning the thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's, again, I think through the physical or digital media, it doesn't matter. People are still wanting to own. But I will say that, again, on the flip side of that, there's a lot of passive enjoyment of content. Yeah. Right. Where I think for me, when I want to own something, there's something that's tied to that. right?
Yeah.
It's something greater than just an enjoyment of listening to something. Because I can listen to iTunes stuff and, hey, that song was great in the moment, right? I won't go back to it ever. If I lose access to it, it's no big deal. But there are certain things that I think are super meaningful. And I'd say that from the indie film space, I would say this is where the friends and family need to really come through for artists, right? Own their stuff.
Yeah.
Don't passively watch their stuff for free. Like own it,
Buy the
because
DVD on Amazon.
you know the person who made that, right? There's a connection there. And that's something that's worth having in your hand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing about, Apple and iTunes in general from the beginning is it probably did increase consumption, right? Because when you had to pay for it out of your own pocket and then carry it around and actually warehouse it, because that's kind of what you're doing. When you buy something, you're like, put it into your home and finding a place for it. No matter what it is you're buying, you're a little bit more precious about the purchase. You're like, do I really need this? Do I really want it? Why do I want it? And you question it. But when you don't have to own it necessarily outright, and it can live in a cloud and a digital space, you rent more, you listen more, you consume more, you buy more. So there is a flip side to that ownership where more people can be involved because the bar for commitment is much lower. But all that tangent aside, it's like, I know Netflix is awesome. People in the indie space should look to selling to Apple, because the other thing is Apple is deeply concerned with story. Like, they want to tell a story about people, and it shows throughout their entire catalog that, yes, they're interested in A-list and they have a ton of that and they pay for it. But when you look at their movie space and things they acquire, they really care about story about people.
Right.
There's a particular Apple type story that's perfect for indie.
That's right. Yep.
And I think we'll do some more research on what that takes and get back to this audience on that and figure it out. We haven't talked, by the way, in so long that there's a whole war that's broken out since the last time we were on here. Like there's a war happening, and we have the theater of war I've seen with Zelensky and Putin and the Israeli and prime minister and French president and Macron and Biden, of course. And so we've seen the theater, the talking heads. Of course, we can't leave them out. And then we've seen the fog of war, where no one can confirm what happens in the war unless you're on the ground there, because you never know what information you're getting is pure and who it's from and for what leveraged purpose. And that's why I say nothing's fair or all's fair in love and war. But our concern is the movie business. And one of the things that came directly to my mind is could you go to, with Putin being on the offensive and it being a regime that mirrors China, I mean, could you go to LeBron right now if you're a reporter and say, hey, do you still think Daryl Morey is miseducated about how communism works and dictatorship work? Like you said several years ago when his job was on the line, when he said he supported the freedom of the Uyghurs. I mean, like, would LeBron be bold enough to say, yeah, Daryl Morey still needs to be re-educated? Yeah, China works, Russia works, and we forget about these people who like put their brand and name on the line for these countries so that the money could keep flowing in. Like, I think John Cena's taken an absolute beating. I don't want to pile on, but he's another one. He's taken an absolute beating. I mean, doesn't he just have to hide right now? Like, he apologized to China in Chinese about Taiwan, and now Taiwan could get invaded because no one's paying attention to that because of a very similar regime, doing to Ukraine what China wants to do to Taiwan. So in the movie business, they're so tied to these terrible, terrible regimes. At what point do you have to put that aside and say, okay, this is wrong? Even if it hurts our money, Nick, I'm standing with Ukraine. I'm standing with liberty. I'm standing with whatever, you know?
Yeah, you take that on an individual by individual basis, right? There's no general consensus on how people are going to approach situations like that based off of the relationships they've had in the past or the relationships they have now. You know, like you said, you know, do you put the money aside? It may not be as simple as their money, right? Their money, their brand, their future, you know, some of the connections that got them to where they are. Who knows? You know, we don't know enough about the backstory or the background, you know, of these individuals, and they're going to take it on an individual by individual basis. You know, we'll see what happens there. I think, you know, the broader view of it is like, you know, is there going to be a response from Hollywood about the kind of the Russian regime, oligarchy, and things like that? You know, if you take it back to, you know, some of the movies in the what 80s, 90s, you know, when you have all these, you know, Russian villains.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to see a time when we go back to that, and what does it look like? You know, I mean, I think there was some archetypes back then, you know, all the Russians were huge.
Yeah.
You know, like huge guys. And, you know, we were battling against them. And I'm curious, you know, what that looks like going forward. Like, how will Hollywood, you know, respond to this? You know, how will they reflect it in our history? You know, will they stay away from it? You know, I don't know. I mean, well, I'm very curious to see. You know, where's Sean Penn?
Yeah, we haven't heard from Sean in a minute. I saw that Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher got thank yous for their support from Ukraine. I haven't heard from Sean Penn, who was great in Licorice Pizza, by the way.
Exactly. And that there's a tie, but I'm curious. But yeah, so for me, that's what I'm really interested in finding out is, you know, what is Hollywood's response? There usually is some level of, you could say, theatrical portrayal of their version of history.
Yeah, and the victims are the Russian people. These people don't want the war.
Right.
And the same thing that's happening there happens here when we go to war. If you speak against it, you're unpatriotic, you're disloyal, and you're a traitor. And if you don't want the war and you're a Russian right now, you're disloyal, a traitor, not a patriot, and of course you can be killed.
Yep, you got it. Killed, you jailed. Yeah. Yeah,
I always thought it was hypocritical, but from Hollywood that they would make, you know, Russian villain movie after Russian villain movie and then be in bed with China. But that hypocrisy,
or be in bed with Russia.
That hypocrisy is recent, though, right? Like what happened was, you know, China started acting like a capitalist, you know, country, and a lot of Asian people got rich, you know, without them sort of copying the economic practices of the West. You wouldn't have a Jack Ma if he still exists, you know, founder of Alibaba. Like you wouldn't have these, you know, these industries that weren't just copying someone else's IP, but, you know, stand alone as their own, you know, invention, as their own. Because, you know, the culture there wouldn't allow for that. And you open the floodgates up, and now you're allowed to go be an inventor, go be a founder, go be a startup, use that education. You know, companies like NIO, I don't know how they pronounce it, but with the way they do the battery swapping for electric cars, for example. So there are companies that grew out of that. But then when they got too big and threatened the power of Xi Jinping, then it's like, okay, let me put the foot down and let you know, still who's in charge.
It's within the confines of that, the governmental control. I mean, you know, it's innovation, you know, but hey, this is innovation for the benefit of China. Right? That's really what it comes down to.
Right. That whole thing we talked about in terms of like socialist harmony and how hard it is and what liberties everyone has to give up in order for there to be this idea of perfect harmony. But living in perfect harmony isn't the same as singing in perfect harmony. So, and we make that analogy and it's incorrect. But, you know, the movie industry is like, whoa, wait a second. You guys are making movies. You're spending billions of dollars on it. You have studios. Our box office is hurting domestically. Now we can put the movie over there and make most of our money there. We'll go with whatever you think is right.
Right. We're good. We're good. Right.
We're good. Whatever you think is right.
No villains in our movies.
Yeah.
Right.
All the Chinese villains go away. There won't be any weird insignia that's, there won't be any symbolism that's so,
Right.
and you just don't see those villains anymore. But the fact of the matter is that regime is very similar to Russia and very similar to North Korea and similar to these places that we vilify, all the time. And so I just think that as an industry, both studio system and indie, we need to be unified and decide one way or the other. What are our principles? What do we believe in? We're not talking about Chinese people.
And I say good luck. And I say good luck with that. The unification of principles and values and coming up with ones.
It's about governments.
Yeah, it's like
maybe it's not going to happen. Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen. Yeah. One quick thing before we wrap up is this idea of, we hear a lot of indies and indie filmmakers and hear from a lot of them that are going into making their first feature film or deciding to make a feature film, seeing actors that, say, okay, well, what better way to boost my reel than to make and write a movie that I star in? And for investors, this is a really bad deal. Right? For investors, this is a run the other direction kind of deal, unless there's a really strong why and that actor is writing and leading in it, and not for their reel.
That's like you're testing the waters. It's like it's not even a pilot. It's like a proof of concept or something like that.
Right.
But that's not an investment. You don't invest in someone's reel.
Yeah, and they're real.
That's not a thing.
Right. And then the movie's almost guaranteed to be made poorly because everybody on the team is going to be mercenary for that reason. And everybody's going to know what it's really for. And you're not telling a story that matters. It's all about getting this, this one person to get more exposure. Right. And, they say when you go on an ego trip, you typically travel alone. And so I'm surprised by that. And then we have other filmmakers that just say, hey, I want to jump right into the den and make a feature because I'm just not good at short form narrative. But I don't know. The question I have for you is should anyone in indie start at feature, or should they just make some shorts first? What's your feeling on what the ramp should be?
Yeah, well, my feeling on that, man, it's shorts. It's like for so many different reasons. I think, one of them is funding. It's a lot easier to fund or to finance a short than it is for a feature film. So, there's less work on, up front to get your project off the ground. 2, I think it's easier to put a team together to make a short. 3, I think once you start putting teams together to make shorts, you build teams. Yeah. Right. I think people start out in that mercenary state, maybe in the beginning, because they're for hire. But then once you do the first one, then you'll say, hey, I think this team works really well together, maybe minus that one person, right? There's one person on the team that we shouldn't be doing this with anymore. Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and move forward and find a replacement. And then you kind of work through those kinks, with the short films where, work on a feature, man, that's 3 to 5 years of your life potentially.
Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine putting all that time in just to not get the result that you want in the end? Whereas a short, you could have been done in, maybe it would take 6 months to a year. Right. Or maybe it takes 3 to 6 months, depending on the team that you're with.
Or 3 to 6 days.
Right. Or 3 to 6 days. So, so it's one of those where I'm definitely a fan. And there's so many different avenues for shorts. Right. You can get those into festivals. You can win an Emmy for a short. You can get them into public television to get people's eyes on it. There's so many different ways to leverage a short film without the angst, without the time, without the effort. And again, you do a feature film and it costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. And, if you screw the pooch on that, then you might have just killed, the investors, as in the investors may not invest, 1, in you anymore, but 2, they may no longer invest in independent film. Yeah. You mess that up for everybody, so for me, I'm 100% short films first.
Even if it's your dog, people will frown on you if you screw the pooch. Even if it's your dog.
I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do with that comment. I don't even know what to do with it.
In a negative context. And it's just like, look, it's your dog. It's your dog.
Yeah.
No, you should not screw the pooch. It's not.
You're right, exactly. You should not screw the pooch. It's not a good thing. Don't do that. It's not fair to the dog.
Yeah, well, I was getting there. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. I love the point about building the team.
Yeah.
As well. How many times have we heard from, sort of behind the scenes, like behind closed doors, I will never work with that producer again. And I will never work with this director again. I will never, or this, I cannot believe this actor called the producer on me, and like all these things. It's like, to find that out on your $1 million feature film, that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts. You could have tested the water on what it was like to work with that person for a range of free to maybe 20 grand.
Right.
Tops.
Yep.
So, and from a range of 1 day to maybe getting out of post 6 months, right? Like so much time wasted, right? Your real life that you can't, take back and adjust. By the way, you'd be really proud of me. Well, I know you're proud of me every day. But you would enjoy this parental tip I gave last night, and to those parents out there that have kids that do music or art or sports, feel free to take this one little because as parents we like bars, like if you can give your kid a bar,
putting our kids behind them.
Well, it prevents your kids from being behind bars if you can give them enough like knowledge bombs and bars. When they're growing up. And I had a bar last night, bro. I had a 16. I dropped it on my youngest and just said, "Hey, don't forget this is your real life." As she was headed out to soccer practice, don't forget this is your real life. Go out there and play to your best ability. You can't go back and fix it later. Right. Can't go back and wish you gave some effort later. Right. Once you do it, it's in the banks of time. It's in the annals. Can't ever take it back. Can't you can go back and read that chapter, but you can't edit it.
Right.
You just go out and do your best every time, because this isn't the internet. This isn't reality TV.
This isn't Roblox.
As Jack Nicholson said in The Departed. This isn't reality TV. No, this is your real life. Go out and do great. And that's a good message I'd like to send to our audience and our community. Hey, if you got some shortcoming, some fear, some anxiety, don't forget, this is your real life. Go out and do the thing you want to do, and do it fearlessly, but not recklessly. There's a difference between fearless and reckless. You can be an idiot and waste everybody's time and money and endanger people, or you can do it the right way, but don't let your internal voice, the one I have, Nick has, we all have, keep you from doing a thing. So, Nick, this has been a blast, per usual. Man. I'm not even surprised anymore. It's just, we just roll in here
and roll through it.
It's like I've known you for 20 years. It's weird.
It's like that. It is. It's like that.
It's weird. Yeah. It's weird. For those listening, do you know that you can find this podcast, this conversation, in 35 plus different places across the World Wide Web? You can find us everywhere. Make sure you find us on the player of your choice. And if they provide an opportunity for you to rate this podcast 5 stars, please rate this podcast 5 stars. It would mean
and subscribe
to us. And subscribe. Absolutely. Why not subscribe?
Yep.
We're not spamming you. We don't spam.
Right.
Just goodness, a time or two a week, and we promise, we'll give everything we have to it, because we realize this is our real life too. The preamble I will save, but in terms of questions and concerns, I always like to say that part, Nick, just because it's coming from our voices. We want you to reach out to us. We want you to engage. You can do that by emailing us at contact@bonsai.film. That's an email address. You type it up. You put it into your little client and you type it up, and then we get it. And then we respond. We promise. We respond to everything. Yep. And the way a lot of people do reach out to us is on social media in those DMs. So _Bonsai Creative. That's where you can find us for now. We might have some changes coming soon to those handles, or give you some different handles, different ways to reach out to us. And then last, but certainly not least, support this podcast in a financial way. I know you do with your ears and your hearts, but you can also do it in a dollars and cents way. And that really helps us out. It helps us do this thing. It takes a lot of work. Anyone that tells you just turn on your phone and you make a podcast is lying. That's just not how a good, consistent podcast is made. That's not how you make a good podcast. That's just how you record your voice. And that was invented years ago, called voice recorder. And you could hold that in your hand. That's been around for decades. So podcasting is a little bit different. A lot more goes into it, and we need your help. So you can do that at bonsai.film. So www.bonsai.film/true fans. And we're also going to give you some different ways to contribute coming up here in the near future as well. So with that, Nick, can you leave us with the credo?
Of course. So all of our filmmaking fans and filmmaking friends out there, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again, man. This is fun, as always.
All right. Talk soon.
Yes, sir. Take it easy.
Peace.
You've been listening to the Make It Podcast. To find out more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we're trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please visit www.bonsai.film and click Contribute. Contributions start at only $5 monthly. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. You can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film, and you can follow me, Chris, on Twitter at FlamingYourHeart. That's FlamingYurHeart. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step towards your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore a variety of offerings, from keynotes and panels to pitch readiness assessments and so much more. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.